All right, so let's talk about one of the most basic things, and that's coming home from like a doctor's appointment or something like that, right? You got the driveway here, and so depending on what you do, if you pull in the driveway and you have the passenger door over here, then the person's going to be getting out into the grass, and that's not good. If they're on a wheelchair or they're in a walker, that's not good, right? And then, if, of course, we live in Florida, it looks like it's going to rain, which means it's going to rain. So you can take the sidewalk, right? You got to make sure that it's wide enough. Then, of course, mine has a curve in it. Then I got to trim some foliage back. And then we come up here and we've got a step with a double door, right? Now I know that my door is wide enough. My door's 32 inches wide. So, of course, I should be able to, without the obstacle of a dog, be able to go in through the door if I'm using a walker or a wheelchair. If I'm in a wheelchair, then how am I going to get over that step there, right? So there's several different options that you can use, ramps, things like that. There's several different kinds of ramps that you can use, and it just depends on what your application is. Again, living in Florida with this kind of weather going on, thankfully, my porch is under cover, so there's a ceiling above it. So, my front entry doesn't get wet and it doesn't get a lot of sun on it or anything. So we can actually get away with several different things. And again, it depends on whether it's going to be permanent or is it going to be temporary. There's a lot of different questions to ask. So if we're looking at this door, then we need to make sure that we're measuring everything from the right height. Okay. So what we've got is we've got a 5.5-inch step with another half-inch threshold that leaves us at 6 inches. All right. And then this brown piece where the door seals against is going to be an extra 1/4 of an inch, almost a 1/2 of an inch, which means that the inside of the door is going to have too much of a bump for a wheelchair, or a walker, to roll over smoothly if they're on a rollator or something like that. So at 5.5 inches, plus the extra 1/2 inch for the threshold, then that means that we would need like a 6-foot ramp if somebody was in a wheelchair. But it's kind of an atypical height because we're used to 8-inch steps and treads on normal stairs. So there's several different ways to go about this. Like I said, if it's temporary, then we would just do a folding ramp that somebody could take with them and remove. If it's permanent, then we'd have to look at several different options. In this case, this area is covered, so I wouldn't worry about a rubber ramp. I think I'd much prefer something permanent that ended right here at the edge of this door and over here at the edge of this door, so that there was parameters as far as whether they could get in and out safely. The other option, when there's days like this, is to realize that the best option is to go in through the garage. But even in Florida, we have these steps, right? There's a step right here. And it's typically going to be the same height as the step that goes into the front door. In this case, mine's 7 inches. But in my case, we have a dog crate behind the door. So the door doesn't open all of the way, right? But if the door did open all the way, there's the dog. If the door did open all of the way, then we'd have to consider how would we get the person in and what kind of things would we have to change? Would we have to change this out to a motion sensor switch? We have to make sure that there's plenty of lighting in the garage. And then do we have lighting going into the kitchen or whatever room is after the laundry room? So on the inside of the door here, you'll pardon me, but I got the blinds shut so the dogs don't bark, number one, and number two, so that there's not a glare. Actually need to replace this flashing or this weather stripping here. But you can see that actually the gap between the bottom of the door and the floor is about 1.5, almost 1 3/4 of an inch. So anything over a 1/2 an inch, which is kind of like the thickness of your finger, is too much for a wheelchair to roll over. So something in here that would be appropriate would be like a 1-inch rubber ramp, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is one of the modular ramp systems that Harmar sells, and you can see even with this rug here that we use for people wiping their feet on. If we put this over top of it, the door is still going to open and clear, but it's not going to have that bump that we'd have to worry about with the wheelchair. So this is a great option, and they sell these in individual sections. There's actually even spots to put some bolts in them. I wouldn't do this through the hardwood floors in the house, but there's a lot of options as far as like putting some sort of epoxy down so that this thing won't slide around. And it's not light either. It's, you know, it's probably 10, 12 pounds, something like that. So that would fit perfectly. And then that door is going to open the whole way. Not a problem. Coming out of the house, you'd have to come back down the sidewalk and everything, and then back out to the vehicle. So now I park on that side of the driveway. If the passenger side was over here again, then we'd have to negotiate the flagpole. We'd have to negotiate all of that stuff. If you back the car in, you need to stop the car here so that the person in the wheelchair or walker can walk out into the driveway and then around the side of the car and get in on the passenger side.